Welcome back to Wellness as a Way of Life. This week on the podcast, we are talking about pillar number 3 in my 6 pillars of optimal wellness movement. And this is going to be short and sweet. I really am just going to invite you to reframe movement, which is arguably why I call it movement and not, the exercise pillar. I'm not saying that exercise isn't important. I just want you to think about why exercise was invented to begin with. It is a relatively modern invention, and that is because we have increasingly easier and sedentary lives. Therefore, one thing that we can do is just bring more movement or activity into our daily lives. And I'm sure this isn't the first time that you've heard it, but hopefully, or maybe I can give you some new perspectives or plant some new seeds on ways that you can truly integrate more movement into your life. So the first one is, let's say, something that you've heard before, be intentional about parking your car further away from wherever you need to go and walking a little bit more, or leaving the car at home. Maybe you can bike there. Maybe you can walk there. Maybe you can take the stairs instead of the elevator. Maybe you can take your meeting, or at least a meeting a day, walking in a park, or at the very least, standing up in your office, in your home, and pacing a little bit, or, doing some light stretches or squats or something as you're listening on a meeting. Of course, there are all of these inventions like the treadmill desk, the standing desk. All of these things are inviting the same concept into your life. An opportunity to just be more active, standing, sitting, stretching, moving, as you're doing what you already need to do, which is generally sedentary. So another idea is if you like to watch TV, or you're like a Netflix junkie like I am, maybe you can do that while walking on a treadmill, or doing some yoga stretches, or at the very least switching up where you're seated, not just throwing yourself on a couch, but sitting on the floor. There are many cultures in the world that don't have as much furniture, and to some degree it's intentional in that they're well aware of the benefits of sitting on the floor. It's usually a harder surface. It invites better posture. It requires you to get up and down from the floor, which, increasingly a lot of 50 plus members of our society can't just get up from a cross-legged seated position with one swift movement. It's like planting your hand and leaning to the side and putting one foot, further out, and requires some thought in terms of balance. It's not just like, whoop, get off the floor, or whoop, sit down. Which brings me to another way that I like to think about movement differently, which is thinking in terms of longevity. And so this is where functional movement comes in. Functional movement is the types of activities that we are required to do in our day-to-day to be independent. So you go grocery shopping. Ideally, you can carry the majority, or, 2 or 3 grocery bags in each hand and walk up a flight or 4 of stairs. You are traveling. Hopefully, you can lift your own carry-on luggage into the overhead bin. You have young family members. Maybe they're your children, grandchildren. Ideally, you can pick them up if they're under 5 and hug them and play with them. You can bend down and sit on the floor and play with them. So all of these things in terms of being able to do some basic functional movement, like what sort of distance do you want to be able to walk into your 80s without having to rely on other people? For me, I would say several kilometers, right? So it's knowing that you need to maintain a certain endurance, a certain flexibility, and a certain strength, and not all traditional and or trendy exercise practices really incorporate or think about the longevity that it's bringing to your body, other than, let's say, weightlifting, particularly for women, is really wonderful because anytime that you're using the muscles stimulate the strengthening of the bones, and therefore it is preventative for osteoporosis. But there's no reason to go to extremes. You can get enough of that just using your own body weight. So incorporating 20 push-ups into your week, if not every other day, certain amount of sit-ups. Again, you can do all sorts of things at your local park, even without needing to pay to enroll into a gym, pay to have someone train you. I do think those are great tools to encourage you to do more exercise, don't get me wrong, but I'm just saying there are ways to make this accessible for everyone. It's just about getting out there and staying active, being intentional, and inviting movement opportunities into your life. Another really great one that most people don't think of are the chores around the house. Like, our households are increasingly convenient. Everything is done for us. Washing the dishes, to a lot of degree, the prep and the cooking. Just be more intentional about, look, I already have to do these things in my life, so why can't I make it a movement exercise or practice? I kind of like the word practice better. Or opportunity. When you're just starting out, think of it as an opportunity to move. There was a point in my life that I would, at all costs avoid going up several flights of stairs, because it's like, oh, it's all the way up there. Like, can I solve the problem without it? Like, no. Great. Now I have to go up 3 flights of stairs and come back. I've already got a little bit of movement in. Or cooking. Again, let's go back to cooking. The standing and chopping vegetables, washing vegetables, intentionally standing is an opportunity. You can plant your feet. Notice, how are you standing? Are you putting pressure? Are you connecting with the floor on all 4 corners of each foot? If you stand differently, can you feel some activation in the muscles of your legs? What if you bend your knees? How does that change? Can you feel your pelvic floor activated? Where is your pelvis in space? Where is your pelvis in relation to your shoulders? Are you standing up straight? These are just quick body scans that you can do not all day long, but at moments in your day, to bring more awareness to your body and muscles and tone and posture. And in turn, it brings more movement, strengthening, and balance exercises, opportunities, practices into your life in the day-to-day. If you're someone who drives a lot, increasingly we don't do that as much. A lot of us don't commute anymore, but if you drive a lot, how are you sitting when you're driving? Are you engaging your core muscles? What happens when you engage your core muscles? Are you sitting up straight? Where is your head in space in relation to your shoulders, your pelvis? Is it possible to adjust your seat in a way that really invites a healthy posture as you're driving? Maybe you can feel more powerful and strong as you're driving. Just tiny things. And lastly, as we're coming up to the 10-minute mark here, I wanted to just plant the seed that bringing more music into your life is also a way to invite more movement. So again, we're cooking in the kitchen. Can we bring a little bit of zhuzh, a little bit of movement into you standing in the kitchen when we put on some music? Same thing when we're driving. Okay, we're listening to some music that we really want to groove to. Well, groove. Just bring some tiny, loving, juicy rotations, movements, go with the beat, and bring that sort of joy and love into your body more on the day to day. So I'll leave it there for now. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you come back next week.